Christopher Spera, and this is the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 71. Well, doesn't that just suck? Recorded live Sunday, December 10th, 2023, live from iTechGear Central. As I said, I'm Christopher Spera, the editor-in-chief over at iTechGear. And joining us this week, we've got the usual suspects. You know, we're just all over the doggone place. Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, how are you?
Hello, hello. I'm fine. I'm in the packing phase prior to a road trip to Minnesota.
Absolutely.
And I know we're going to be greeted by probably 16 feet of snow and sub-zero temperatures, but I'm still looking forward to spending time with my wife's family.
Well, no offense there, and meant towards Dr. Mrs. McJunkin. But
why wasn't she born in the South, right?
Yeah,
but being the furthest person north,
better you than me, and yeah.
I was gonna say, being the furthest person north right now, I can tell you it was 56 here yesterday.
Oh, that's cool.
I can do that. It's dropping now, but it was warm, and we didn't have any snow really in the forecast for the next few days. So we'll see.
We'll have fun.
Dr. Mr. McJunkin, former co-owner of WUGNET Publications, and now editor at large at iTechGear.org, also joining us with this week with his dulcet tones.
Always.
Yes. Interesting that you knew it was you.
I know. Some you always said some people have a face for radio. I have a voice for print.
Thank you.
I get it. I get it.
That is Mr. Chris Gavula, the former contributing editor over at Gear Diary and Pocket Now, and also now editor at iTechGear.org. How are you, sir?
I'm good. And Larry, I just want to say, please be careful on your trip, as always.
Oh, we will. Thanks, bud.
Yes. And last but certainly never, ever least, the former contributing writer at Gear Diary and currently the host of the Linux Link Tech Show and living in the Retro Arcade podcast, Brother Joel McLaughlin. How are you, sir?
I am doing just great. I've had my family party up here. The 3D printed ornaments were a success.
Awesome.
Everyone really liked theirs. A couple left them behind, but I got to take them there. In fact, I got a couple I got to deliver this week before I get out of town. And get into the mail this week as well too, namely your guys's. But
yeah, and you got a show out last week too.
My last show for the year. I'm taking the rest of the year off, mostly because I'm sitting there and probably going to redo an intro and all that stuff. Just because
it's Retro Arcade or Linux Link?
Retro Arcade. Well, both actually, both. Which. The Linux Link Tech Show is more like if you just created a podcast out of this, like what just talking like we did before in the pre-show.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it is. But also occasionally it's just four or five guys sitting around shooting the shit about technology, kind of like this, but not as organized.
Hey, that's a good idea. We should do open mic during the pre-show sometimes, just for the hell of it.
That's one of the things that I want to go ahead.
We don't want to scare our potential users or listeners away.
That's true, but it is one of the things that I want to go ahead and offer over at Patreon. Is an opportunity for some folks to be in the audience, if you will.
Dream it, man.
And we'll see what happens. We have to get patrons first. I'm just saying. So, but yeah. So one of the things that I want to make certain, speaking of patrons, one of the things that I want to make certain that everybody knows and understands. All right. This is the holiday season, and there be peoples after your monies.
Yeah, there sure is.
And there are a lot of them out there. A few weeks ago, near the end of November, just before Thanksgiving, Larry was kind enough to pull together a really good article on staying safe online. And I want to make certain that I remind everybody of it during this holiday buying season. So please, folks, There are some good tips here. If the link for this will be in this again, this week's show notes. Please do yourself a favor and do us a favor and take a look at that article. It's got some really good tips on how to stay safe online while you shop, while you surf, while you read your email. There is no prince in Nigeria. Bill Gates is not going to give you $1 million. And believe it or not, your email address did not come up a winner today.
No. Belinda took it all.
And I want to say it again. I know we said it last week, but man, the amount of this crap that's been increasing in the last few weeks has been amazingly bad. It's been
we had another one today, guys, just like the one I told you about.
Me too. Me too.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And so please, we see it all the time. We're seeing it a lot more than usual. Everybody, please be safe.
Yep. So there's some good tips in there. Make sure you take a look at it. And speaking of some decent tips, the start of our Apple segment this week, I was trying to print something from my MacBook Air, which very rarely, if ever, is physically connected to my network. And so I'm printing wirelessly, and I realized, well, I hadn't set up the printer driver on this to print something out for my wife, who was taking our oldest granddaughter to a nice little play, and they needed to print out some tickets. And God knows people don't necessarily understand that there's one ticket on one side and one ticket on the other side if you print in duplex, which basically helps you save paper. It prints 2 pages on one sheet of paper, one page on each side. Sometimes people want to turn that off. And on my Canon printer, because this doesn't happen on every printer that's out there, the duplex switch in the driver is buried in the menus. All right. And if it's even there at all, because there are some apps that use their own printer interface or ways of communicating with your printer driver. So long story short here, kids, if you need some way to turn off your duplex printing option, all right, I've got an article that I published just about a year or so ago, on Valentine's Day last year, no less. And I want to make certain that everybody knows and understands this is a great way of running through all the options for your printer and then finding the duplex one and turning it off. Some teachers for college classes don't want papers printed on both sides of the same sheet of paper. They want to be able to go ahead and have it just on one page on one side of one sheet of paper, so that when they mark up your students' papers, some of the comments don't bleed through to the other side, depending on what they're using to mark up papers with. So if you can't find it, there's a great way of doing it. It's a wonderful how-to with a piece of instruction and a picture and an instruction and a picture and instruction and a picture. It'll take you through it all. And I always find it very, very useful and very, very helpful. I have bookmarked it, and I use this particular set of instructions myself. So make certain that you take a look at it, and if you have problems with figuring out where to turn off duplex printing, which prints content on both sides of one single sheet of paper, and you just want it on one side of a piece of paper, this is where to get it. So there you go.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because I was at an event last night at Greenfield Village, part of the Henry Ford. Big, for those who don't know, who are outside the region, it's a huge museum and village kind of complex with a lot of historical kind of things going on. And I was at a holiday event, and my tickets were printed, and I did print them as duplex with their barcodes, and they actually thanked me, said, "Oh, you're saving paper." Oh, that's great. So It's interesting how you run into one situation where they like it, another situation where they don't like it. But it's really, really handy to know how to turn this thing on and off.
Agree.
Getting at.
Agree. And just in case, you've got some kind of requirement where,
or you're the other way and you want to save paper and you don't know how to do it.
Turn it back on with these instructions. Correct.
Exactly.
Because it's very easy to see in the cups interface that this enables, which is a web interface that you can see exactly if it's on or off, and then make the appropriate change. So there you go.
Nice.
So, but I want to spend the bulk of our Apple segment. Our Apple segment is actually very short this week, but I want to spend a little bit of time because there's actually been some very active news this week related to an application. It's an Android application. And why are we talking about an Android app in the Apple segment? Well, I'll tell you, kids. The app is called Beeper Mini. All right. And Beeper Mini was, all right, could be again very shortly for another very short period of time, an application that sends blue bubbled texts through the iMessage service between Android devices and an Apple device, or two Android devices, or whatever. So
let me insert a little history just to try to
pull
help
out your notes. So, would you please? Could you?
I will pull up my notes, but the little history, just so we know that this is actually what I would probably call a second or third generation product to try to solve this problem for folks. It's only, obviously, as we've said before, outside of the U.S., most people don't care. Everybody else outside the U.S. uses WhatsApp. They use Telegram. They use, Snapchat. They
don't use messages on or iMessage on their iPhone.
Let's remember that iMessage from Apple is really like those. It's not a replacement for the carrier's SMS or MMS services, or even RCS these days. It's its own kind of standalone thing, and they happen to integrate it.
It's they have a third-party app, right? I mean, it's a third-party app from
Apple.
Right, from Apple.
And
Apple,
they integrate.
Apple owns it. We got to let them know that too.
They do own it. And they integrate SMS at their server level and at their client level, such that you, as the user on the Apple side of things, you don't care. When you send a message, it'll try the iMessage first, and then it'll fail over SMS. So that's where we're coming from, and that's what's created the blue bubble, green bubble thing.
Well, right, but when a message is successfully sent, though, through the iMessage service, it comes up in a blue bubble. All right. If
it's from an iMessage to an iMessage, if it's Android, or typically what ends up being SMS from Apple's perspective, or MMS, or now RCS from Apple's perspective, they're going to come in as green bubbles. RCS is not there yet, but they've already said it will be a green bubble when it comes in. But having said all that, that's sort of where we're coming from. The history of it was that they first had solutions that actually where you had to have a local Mac in your environment that basically.
And this is the company Beeper. Beeper had
not just Beeper. There were several solutions out there that.
Well, yes, there's more than one solution.
I'm just talking about the types of services right now. I'm not talking about which brands.
Okay.
So the type of service there were services that you set up a Mac, sort of behaving as a server. It used your iMessage client on your Mac that's talking to your iMessage account, and it would in turn relay it as a message to your Android device using Google services to translate that message out. That was mechanism one. Mechanism two was similar, except instead of having to have your own Mac on site, you talk to a Mac that was out in the cloud, and that was inherently less secure because you're giving them your Apple credentials, basically. And so that was sort of the second type of product that was out there. This way, what was so key about this thing, about this Beeper Mini product, that's why I kind of call it a third generation thing, is that it did it all from the client side, and it actually logged into Apple's iMessage service as a client. So you didn't have a server in the middle. You didn't have to maintain a component. So that, for a lot of folks, our Mr. Spera included, this is a very exciting thing. And it really is an exciting thing. And it's an amazing technical achievement of reverse engineering.
And be clear, this was reverse engineered a while ago. with
It was.
iMessage. It's a Python program that you can do on pretty much any machine that supports Python, which is really Windows, Mac, or Linux. Doesn't really matter. And that's how, I mean, this is kind of the root of where this kind of stuff comes from. You also did not have to sign into it to get the benefits of it.
So that goes back to what I was saying a minute ago about the fact that with iMessage, the true iMessage in the server environment, they would allow you to support a mixture of your iMessage account, your Apple ID, if you will, and SMS. So use your phone number off your phone, and it registered it in their servers. And so it's able to leverage that even if you don't log in with an Apple ID at that point. Now, on Apple devices, that's almost kind of automatic that you're going to do both. But on non-Apple, but it's not a requirement. It wasn't a requirement. And that was one of the key kind of things that as Joel, as you just pointed out, and they didn't know they could do that at first. Actually, it was something they discovered as they were deploying, and they were trying to fix a bug, which is an interesting side story. But they found that they could do this, that the number could register without you having to use an Apple ID, or you can use the Apple ID or both, and basically share it just like you do off of a Mac, just like you do off of any iOS device. And that was the thing. Now, Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what the problem was and what happened?
Sure. Now, I also want to make certain that everybody knows and understands why did this matter to folks here in the States. There are some folks that are Android by choice, or for their personal phones, and there are some folks that like Joel, who have an Android phone as their personal phone, and as an iPhone for a work phone. And now you can text back and forth and be in these same conversations with everyone that you were on your iPhone, but you can do it from your Android phone. All right. Or if it's back and forth, or the other way around. The reason why this kind of got so blown out of proportion and where we are now, boy did this hit the headlines this week. It was all over the tech news. It was an amazing feat of reverse engineering, as we said. From what I understand, it was a miner that came up with this particular method of reverse engineering. At least that's what I heard. I'm not necessarily certain that that's completely true, but
well, the one of the founders of Beeper said that. So
so it was a kid that came up with this. They went ahead and quickly pulled this together from this source, kind of incorporated it, and I think they had plans on retiring their Beeper Cloud product.
Yeah,
and
eventually.
And they were going to switch completely to this. They were going to charge you $2 a week to go ahead and be on this service.
What was it, a week or a month?
A month.
Was it a month?
Okay,
yeah,
$2 a month. Yep.
And let's make
but
let's also make it clear that this thing hit the tech news hard because the founder was out there kind of pumping the story.
Oh, he was. He was
pumping it real hard.
To be very honest, there were other folks in the States that have been clamoring and screaming, we want iMessage for Android. We want iMessage for Android. We don't want to be the ones that are reducing the security on all these text conversations or multimedia conversations. We want the iOS level of encryption, or the iMessage level of encryption on all of our texts.
And let's insert one more piece of news here that Google has been kind of trying to strong arm and shame Apple into supporting the RCS standard, which is more secure than the SMS that happens between Android and iOS users today, but not as secure as iMessage. So they've been trying to push them to sort of guilt them into supporting it. And at the same time, there's this whole, why don't we just have iMessage on Android? And those kind of conversations have been floating around for a while as well.
For a while. And so when this hit, everybody with an Android that wanted to have an extra layer of security and didn't want to break the conversation or thread the security of the thread for everybody else, et cetera, jumped on this and really just kind of brought it into the limelight. And interestingly enough, this was around for maybe a couple of days before Apple caught wind of it and killed it.
Well, I think they caught wind of it right away, but I think it took them a few days to decide what their response was going to be.
How they were going to
respond.
What they could do. CEO said, "We'll be back."
Well, and it was Apple deciding technically what they could do, and then what the response was going to be once they figured out what they could do.
Sure,
right. So it took them a few days to get there.
It did.
And you're right. And so they did block it, right? And once they blocked it, now Beeper is saying, "Oh yeah, well, there was about." I'm going to say about 12 hours where we didn't know. Beeper was kind of like, well, we think there's a bug. And then they said, no, we think Apple's blocking us. And then they said, well, we're looking into it. And then they said, no, Apple is blocking us. And then Apple said, yeah, we're blocking you. So, and now they're to the state where Beeper's response is, yeah, we're still working on it.
Right.
Whatever that means. Right.
Right. So Apple's response was effectively, look, we don't know how these devices are logging in. And in fact, they are spoofing a legitimate set of credentials, and that makes the whole service less secure for our legitimate users.
And it may be a violation of terms of service. I don't know.
It may be a violation of their terms of service, but more so, they're saying, at least from a way that made it palatable from a press perspective, Apple's coming back and saying, look, we're really doing this not only to protect those folks that are, quote unquote, illegally using the service from an Android device. We're protecting them as well as our regular users, our actual Apple users, by blocking this, because we don't know if they're really encrypting it on the device or not. They say they are, but we don't know if they truly are. We don't necessarily know because it's supposed to be encrypted on the device, and public and private keys are exchanged as part of the message, so that when I text somebody through this service, they're able to see the contents of the message. Well, Apple's saying, well, we don't necessarily know if this is actually the case.
Yeah, that's certainly what they're saying anyway.
It's protecting our legitimate users. It's protecting the Android users from using a quote unquote bogus or hacked service, et cetera. So we are concerned about security and privacy, and so this is why we are doing this. Which I think is the only position that they could have taken publicly, to get people off of this without the torches and pitchforks.
I think the other thing that they can say, and it's how well it would go over, I don't know, is certainly that Beeper was going to charge people $2 a month. Who's paying Apple for the service?
No one.
Nobody. Right. So when you buy an Apple device, that's basically
part of
paying.
That's part of what you're paying for,
right? So that's part of what you're paying for. So if you're coming in from an Android device, you haven't paid squat. You're taking the service for free. Apple doesn't have advertising on it. They don't have anything like that. So why should they provide service? They're private. It's a private service, just like any of these others. And again, I think a lot of this is this stuff and interoperability is a lot of people have gone outside of the U.S. have gone to other services. Now we've got to remember the thing that happened here in the US that didn't happen elsewhere is the carriers held a stranglehold on a lot of stuff around there. Mm-hmm. We buy our phones from the carriers, which is not true in the rest of the world as much as it is here. Mm-hmm. Because we buy from carriers, we're more beholden to them, and they wanted us to stay on SMS forever. They took forever even to implement MMS a few years back. It was quite a haul before they got there. And RCS was a foot dragging kind of prospect, and not all the carriers support it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So having said that, these private services, including iMessage, are not necessarily things that the carriers give a crap about. So it doesn't get them any money. So having said that, we kind of went down a different path than the rest of the world because our model for service is different. But so you look at things, again, as I said, the rest of the world doesn't care about SMS, RMS, or whether or not iMessage is supported on all platforms. They don't care. But the other piece of this is that, the push to a standard, RCS is probably the closest we're going to get to everybody supporting a standard. Even that was a challenge because the reason we think Apple went that route and said, we'll support it now, which was a recent, development, is that we thought, well, maybe the EU pressure was getting them. But the EU has basically said, Apple doesn't have enough iMessage business for us to care. They basically declared that they're not a gateway service. So, there went so again, you go back to what incentive does Apple have to even do this at this point?
They have none. They have none. And because it is their service and it's, their ball in their field, their pitch.
Yeah.
The
thing is not all that long ago when Apple was doing far less financially well. We're talking late 90s. They fully embraced a lot of more open technologies. And ever since then, it's gone the other direction. And you cannot say Apple supports open technologies anymore, open communications. They're going to support whatever is financially viable for Apple.
They do some, but you're right.
That is true.
You're right.
That is true.
I mean, WebKit is from them, and it's open, semi-open, like anything else.
Right.
Right. But there are some, but yeah.
There are some, but not everyone, not every service that they
right.
I agree.
Correct.
So
I agree. It goes back towards like, okay, now how does a iPhone user get their notes out of the Notes app and into another app? Ask Larry about that.
Don't get it started.
But you could say that. But you could almost say it about most Notes apps. How do you get your stuff out and get it somewhere else? It's challenging with most of them.
Yeah, it just depends on which app it is. Some apps have better portability than
they
others.
Do. Some do, but none of them have perfect portability. I would agree. I would argue. But you're right. But here's the thing: you got to ask. Apple has made several statements over the last few years that slowly they find themselves less and less invested in the hardware business and in services. If their thing is in services, again, and you're the owner of the service iMessage, why would you give it away?
Here's what I would say to Apple. To me, this Beeper Mini in the media attention to this application that it got shows that people want to do iMessage on Android, and I would gladly pay Apple.
I'm with you
to do that. I would do that.
I think what they could do, and I think Joel, that's kind of where I was going with it as well, because I agree with you totally. I think they could, at this point, now that the word is out there that it can be done, and I think we all agree, guys, that we suspect Apple did it a long time ago. They just would never release it, right? That they've had their own client for a long, long, long time, and they might be keeping their client up for all we know, right? Up to date is what I'm saying, with the current features and services. And I would agree with you. I'm telling you, people was going to charge, like I said, $2 a month, but I'm telling you, people will pay even $5 or $10 a month just to have the service. People will pay it. They will. And if Apple wants to go there, people, and they should go there in the sense that if they really want to be on services, forget what they feel about privacy and what they state about that. Forget what they feel about, any of that stuff. The reality is, if they want to be service-based and they want to sell services, this is a service and it's marketable. Go for it.
Right.
Yep.
Very true.
I know we'd all subscribe because that's what we are, but
we're incredible geeks, and I'm interested in this because depending on which device I'm using to now, my iPhone 15 Pro Max is my daily driver, right? It's the one I'm in every day. It's got my main number. And it's the number that I've had for like the past 23 years. So I'm not getting rid of it anytime soon. And it's on an eSIM now, so it's not necessarily easy to move to another device. But it's been an iPhone for so long. All of my voicemail messages, all of my text messages, or that phone number is registered with the iMessage service, et cetera, which is, by the way, if you're going to move from iPhone to Android, it's one of the things that you need to do is get that number out of there. But I digress.
That's a whole kind of set of instructions in itself.
Right. It is. But I will tell you, my interest, my want for this is pure laziness. All right. I admit it. All right. It's a first world convenience thing. All right. Yeah. I got the other device in my hand. I want it to go to that. All right. I don't want to have to wait for the ding ding and then go and grab the other device.
And I think I've heard Larry say this, and I know I've said this. For me personally, it's never been about blue bubbles versus green bubbles. It's about getting my messages on all my devices.
Right.
Joel, on the other hand, Joel doesn't want to see his messages on anything.
I know. I mean,
I'm teasing you, Joel. Yes, I know.
No, I've never been a fan of that integration. I have an iPad that's paid for by me, not paid for by the company, but I don't want to have company text messages come to my iPad.
If your primary personal phone was an iPhone, you might want it to show up on both devices.
Actually, probably not.
Okay,
because
fair enough.
Because my use case for the iPad is different.
Oh, he said the U word.
Oh, yeah. You used the U word. Oh, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. My iPad is where I go when I want to unplug from most things.
Sure.
I still get email on it and stuff like that.
I like being able to carry just my Android phone sometimes, and I like having my messages appear that already would normally appear to my iPhone appear on my Android phone, and I just forward my phone number from my iPhone to my Android phone, and away I go. And I'm able
as far as the encryption, I was gonna say, as far as from the encryption is concerned, I never send anything, even if I'm on my iPhone. I never send anything that I would care about being encrypted or not. Sure. And to be honest, you shouldn't either, because the only place that we have word from that says that your messages are encrypted is Apple Computer, and I do not trust them.
But having said that, some of us work for environments where they insist that we at least pay lip service to having, sending encrypted messages and only encrypted messages.
Right.
So, there are use cases for that.
There are now, again, this is really only a concern in the States, and then only if you are really, really interested in staying, only if you're an Uber geek or somebody who's really interested in being in the same conversation with iPhone users without reducing the level of security. Most people aren't going to care. All right.
Even people in the United States don't care about that.
They don't.
True.
And I will say, I think that's also one of the reasons that some folks in other parts of the world use other services, because they don't want the carriers or the government or anybody else. They want the encrypted messages. That's another encrypted use case.
Right.
And they want to be able to,
because you want to send those kinds of pictures. It's because you want to be able to have a level of confidence that the message that you're sending, the conversation you're having, is in fact private.
And there are challenging parts of the world where folks, need to be able to talk to each other, or they feel, they need to do that without snooping. I get it.
Retribution or retaliation.
So there's places, where this is a bigger deal than it is for us. But there's lots. I mean, there's also uses around the world, right, for these things.
Very true.
So I get it, but I really think my gut feel is one of two things will happen here at the end. I think that either Apple will offer it as a service, or they'll be negotiated with Beeper, or something like that will happen, or Apple will release their RCS and nobody will care, and this will all go away.
Yep.
I don't know.
Both. One, the other, or both. Right.
I think we're getting to that point where we're at a sort of turning point, but I'm not quite sure which one is going to win or how.
Well,
or both.
Let's just say this. This was pretty big in the tech world this week. This is something that we'll keep an eye on.
And let's repeat that it is a really, really cool tech achievement. This reverse engineering is really cool.
It was quite the feat.
And kudos to the kid that figured it out.
Yeah.
I don't know your name, but kudos to you.
Nope. I hope that the deal that you cut with Beeper was big, at least in the high six figures, and I hope the check cleared. So good on you. Anyway, I want to go ahead though and move us on now to our mobile Linux segment. And hey, guess what Larry found this week? More ARM laptops are coming to market. What do you think? Soon.
I say about dang time, because we know desktop operating systems work on ARM processors. We got
Linux,
Windows
works there,
and Linux and Mac OS
right
also do.
Yeah.
So it is the future. I mean, when you've got even Amazon rolling out elastic compute resources based on the ARM processor, ARM's for real, dudes. It's gonna be here. It's gonna
absolutely.
It has the potential to supplant Intel for sure.
I'm on here talking to you on an ARM laptop.
And Chris G has always been a big proponent of ARM, and ever since you have been, I've been doing a lot more research, and I'm with you. I'm on the wagon. It's going to happen.
I think it's the way it's about when. It was never about if, as far as I could tell.
Right.
Agreed. Agreed. The
big problem now is just there's a lot of stumbling blocks, and it's just not quite. I don't know.
No.
Ubiquitous is a good word.
And I'll be honest, I was saying this before Apple released their ARMs. When we were using the early Surface RT devices, and before that, I said this is the way things are going to go, but they're not ready yet.
Right.
That was my statement at the time.
And
I said,
boy, were they not ready at that time.
They were so not ready.
That was 2011, 2012.
Yep.
And the software wasn't there. The support for the operating system really wasn't there. All that great.
But I've had ARM devices from Windows-based ARM devices, and then later Mac ARM-based devices. Ever since then, I've kept every one of these kind of flavors available to me, because I keep thinking, well, first of all, Chris, you and I have talked about the power savings is huge. I mean,
my goodness,
it runs way longer than an Intel-based laptop.
And just to bring this to bear for everyone, so that everybody can understand, your iPhone is an ARM device.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And your Android device.
Your iPhone, your iPad is an ARM device. Many
Android phones,
of your
all
your Snapdragon Android
devices
are on
ARM,
right?
And think about how powerful they've become. Think about how powerful they've all become.
And they have. Right. And they have. So everybody has these devices, or has access to these devices. This is not new. All right. What needs to happen, and what we're celebrating, sort of, or talking about, is the fact that this is now becoming a little bit more mainstream. And as soon as this happens, there's going to be a lot of there's going to be changes to batteries. There's going to be changes to performance. There's going to be changes to and they're all going to be good things.
So what's important for everybody here to understand, I think, is that Apple did it with their M series chips. They made the leap, and it's been highly successful for them.
Yeah,
and their competitors see that, and they're not going to be left in the background.
Exactly. The Snapdragon chips, which are the closest competitors we had to them, were a little less aggressive in their approach to this stuff.
Agreed.
And we think based on early results that the Snapdragon X stuff is going to be phenomenal when it starts to appear in laptops. And like this article is showing us, here they come. And we know the next generation Surface Pro will have an option for the Snapdragon X. We know that'll be one of the choices. And now we see a whole lot of other devices that are going to be coming down that way. There's been a lot of commitments from the big players in the business who have dabbled in it in the past. I don't want to say they haven't. They've dabbled in it, but they haven't really made a big issue of it. And I think this time around, they're going to make a bigger issue of it. And Microsoft itself has made a commitment toward smoothing out the rough edges in Windows for ARM, which is not bad at all. It's really very good, but there are still some rough edges for people that are on sort of edge use cases. And they're working on cleaning some of that up for folks. So I think this next release, whether it's Windows 12 or whatever we call it on whatever these Snapdragon X-based devices, might be the breaking point or the flipping point for this stuff. Maybe that's a possibility. We'll have to see when they come out. We'll have to see when they come out, but it's going to be a big deal one way or another. It either is going to be an amazing, kind of tipping point for everybody, or it's going to be such a huge colossal disaster that it'll put the nail in the coffin or something. I don't know which. I suspect the former, but I'm hopeful for the former.
You never know. But I will say that it is exciting. It's always exciting when new technology comes to the consumer space. All right. And it's even more exciting when the people that are using it don't necessarily know that it's made that much of an impact on their lives, and that they aren't going to have to completely change the way they're doing everything.
And Apple
it's actually going to get easier for them.
Apple made it invisible, or mostly invisible to people. And so that's why they were one of the reasons they were successful.
Right.
That has to happen in Windows. It's not quite there, but it should be there soon. It's getting better every day.
But the technology that they are using, speaking of Windows and ARM, the technology that they're using on the Surface Pro 9 5G, which is an ARM device. All right.
And that's what I'm on today with you guys.
And what's interesting about this is that it solves the Surface RT problem, which is effectively, why can't I run the same Windows applications on this computer that I run on my other Windows computers?
True.
All right.
And it adds the AI features. I say AI, what I really mean is the background blur and audio filtering and all that kind of thing. It does it in hardware as opposed to software.
Absolutely.
This is a big deal going forward. This is stuff that they want going forward, and they want those NPU chips, which is part of the ARM.
And you will want it
because you're going to need it for AI. You're going to need it for all these improvements in how your video and audio looks, and all these kinds of side tasks that we're not even talking about today. But the point is, those are what we're leveraging. We're leveraging them on Apple hardware today. We're leveraging them on your phones today. If you like your Pixel devices and you like some of the camera stuff that happens, guess what? Some of the special camera features and the editing features that happens because of an NPU in your device.
Neural processing unit, which
Correct.
is an ARM component. It's only found on an ARM-based system on a chip.
Now, Intel says they're going to try to develop something similar going forward. They're not there. They're not there yet. They're not even close yet. But we'll see.
Yep. And while this could be very problematic for Intel, depending on how ARM-based consumer machines are adopted. But Motorola got out of my consumer-based microprocessors. So
there are stories that Intel may be working on their own ARM chips too. So who knows? Those may be rumors. It's hard to know.
Well, so that's again something more to watch and see what happens. Perhaps not as quickly as the Beeper Mini thing, but something that we definitely need to go ahead and move through.
It'll happen.
Keep watching it. ARM's not the only player in the game either. You have RISC-V, which is starting to get some real attention here. I know Linus Tech Tips did a video on a RISC-V based gaming machine running Linux. So, but Intel's not the only name in the game anymore.
Keep in mind, for a long time, Apple ran on Motorola series chips that were RISC-based chips, and ARM is sort of a RISC-based kind of thing as opposed to CISC, which is what Intel chips are. So it's about how instructions are processed is really the difference.
Right.
So it could be interesting to see where all this goes. Right now,
and one important difference, I say one important difference though between ARM and RISC-V or RISC-V, or I think
whatever it's called. Yeah, I think it's 5.
It's the design of the chip is completely open. You don't have to pay anyone to design your own RISC-V compatible chip, unlike ARM where you have to license it. So, more to come.
More to
For
come.
sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And apparently what is, and pardon me for using the phrase, showing up. Well, I'm going to change the phrase now that I've said that, but is all over everywhere on the internet. It seems to be leaking. In fact,
everywhere.
Your mobile password manager is leaking.
Allegedly.
Well, there's no allegedly.
Well,
there's
this
evidence
article is talking about LastPass again, though. I mean, the last time they had a breach, I got rid of it.
The glitch doesn't appear to be with the mobile managers themselves. It appears to be how Google is handling it on Android. That's what this article focuses on.
Right, handling autofill.
Right, handling autofill, and that's what's leaking. That's what the article is telling us. So it's really more fundamental than what the individual password manager is doing. But the interesting thing is the one that seems to be responding to it first is OnePass, right? They seem to be getting on the bandwagon of fixing it or trying to address it with Google first. So let's hope they fix it soon, guys.
Yeah, please. Please, because this is, I mean, if you are not using a password manager, if you are a casual computing user and you're not using a password manager, this is an application that you have a master password. It's some it's on some ungodly long thing, all right, that you've made yourself remember. It's not your sister's cousin's dog's next door neighbor's parrot's name.
It could be squared to the 10th degree or something.
Well, all right. I mean, there's only 7 degrees to Kevin Bacon, but I mean, still, I mean, this is a long. You remember one long password, and then this very secure, very locked down password manager that you log into once you start surfing the internet or start, logging into services and applications and things, stores all your other credentials, all your usernames and all your passwords
not on anywhere else.
Right. That's a very important distinction.
That's right. And so far, Google's password manager is the only one that does not follow those guidelines. They still keep part of it. It is not zero tolerance. No.
But this particular problem isn't with their password manager. This particular problem is how they handle that data being handed into web forms and things like that.
Right.
Little glitch there. But these things,
so
but they're aware. So now maybe they'll fix it.
Well, most password managers use some level of accessibility functionality on the device that it's living on
for the autofill,
to do the autofill or to enter all of that.
But you have to actually submit to that. You can't. They don't push it on you. One password is right out front. You have to turn it on.
Yes. With one password, you have to turn it on. Otherwise, the autofill will not work.
Right.
Yep. And one other thing I think they wanted to point out was if the site uses Java injection, you're going to have this problem no matter what. I think was the thing, because it gets in the middle or it gets in the way or whatever it does.
Java was honestly, it was engineered to do a lot of that. So
people want, there's been a movement for quite a few years now that people really want Java to go away, but then there's other people that don't. So
it's because it's a universal sort of thing. It exists everywhere. It's on the website.
But it's also a very buggy sort of
what,
thing.
What it does is good. How it does it is not good. That's
I would agree. And it's been doing it kind of badly for a long time. I mean, Oracle would disagree since they own Java, but it's been awkward on and off over the years. It's kind of like we got rid of what was that service that famously got rid of a few years back? That was a huge undertaking. Oh dear, I don't remember now. But
Google Wave.
I'm sorry.
Google Wave.
No, not Google, not a particular brand's thing. It was a protocol service that we were all using to do video or to do things, and it finally went away.
What you're talking about. But I don't think it went away. I just think it got sucked into other technologies. But
there are several things like that have gone away because they were really kind of awkward in the way that they did things, and this is one of those. Java's kind of like that. It does what it does. It's easier for people to use, so they use it. But Sometimes easy isn't always best. So, but it does interfere in this whole password management. The not the management, but of the transfer of credentials to a site, and there's some challenges with all of that.
Right. Couple things here that I want to go ahead and say before I close us out of our mobile Linux segment and move us to a brief message. This is something that you need to get into if you're not in, like I said earlier, if you're not into some kind of a password manager and something that is available.
Even with these challenges, I think it's important for people to do this.
Yeah, even with these challenges, you should get one. Number one, it should be the same. You should use the same one on your computer that you use on your phone.
And don't get hung up on which one it is, because the best one that the one you're using is the best one.
Correct.
Absolutely right.
Correct. As long as you keep your master password safe. All right. It is not written on a sticky note somewhere that you've got tagged to your monitor or on the under your keyboard or in a desk.
As we saw in the movie,
but they do it.
I know. That's why I said it.
And we should have learned from the movie Ready Player One. Don't stick it to the side of your hamster ball.
Yes.
Right.
Go on Amazon. You can buy password books. They sell them.
True.
Little black and green and yellow books.
They do.
Yep.
I mean, seriously, folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Do yourself a favor. This is something that you should memorize. All right. Your one and only master password. All right. Whatever it is. It should be longer than 10 characters. All right. It should have upper and lowercase and numbers and special symbols. All right. In it. But you should memorize it, number one. And number two, it should be the same. Whatever one you decide to use, you should use it on all of your devices. That way you have all of the passwords where you need them, when you need them, etc. All right.
True.
And with that, I want to go ahead and take a little break, and we will be right back. Hi, this is Christopher Spera with iTechGear.org, and I'm here to tell you that iTechGear.org and the iTechGear Weekly are on Patreon. Patreon is a platform for creators, allowing them to express their creative side in an organized, marketable fashion and earn a living or create a really cool kind of side hustle. You can create a community around your hobby of choice. You can gain followers. You can get members and supporters all along the way. You can create subscription products that for a pledged amount every month, you'll provide to your members and followers. Setup is easy. Prices are reasonable, and you can have your pledges auto-deposited into an account of your choice every month. With iTechGear.org, our initial offering is a monthly newsletter for just $3 a month. This is our initial offering, and we'll have other tiers and other products and other offers up in the coming months. Become a patron of our site. Grow with us, and we'll provide you with the tech understanding that you're missing right now. Join us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/iTechGear. That's www.patreon.com/iTechGear. And welcome back to the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 71. Well, doesn't that just suck? And I want to go ahead and move us to our Windows segment. Larry, last week we did a whole celebratory thing on Surface devices, and aren't they just spiffy, et cetera, love them, but nothing's perfect. And you bumped into a problem with your Surface Pro 9.
I did. And I don't blame the manufacturer at all for this, not one bit.
This was a hardware
issue. We're getting ready, as I mentioned in the introduction, to go on a trip, and I was actually going to leave my Mac at home a MacBook Pro and just take nothing but my new Surface Pro 9. And I was going to put some finishing touches on, make sure what I had on it and didn't have on it, and blah, blah, blah. So I turn it on, nothing, dead, black. I mean, just dead, like there's no power. Not like a gray screen or
and
a
you know
blue
the thing is charged, right?
Yeah. It's charged, it's plugged in, it's dead. It just doesn't work. So I'm up online, I start looking, and then about 5 minutes later, it turns on. And I got to thinking, I'm going to hedge my bets here. I'm going to do a quick reset of this PC. There's nothing on it that I need right now. I got it in other places. So I did a quick reset, get my data off of it in case it did it again and didn't come back on. So once I got it reset, it did it one more time, and then that was it. It never did come back on. So it went back to its rightful seller, who was very kind and took it back. And actually, it was kind of funny. I won't mention the name, but I did. I walked up to the return desk at this very large store, well-known store, and said, I need to return this. And she said, oh my goodness, what's wrong with it? And I told her. She said, about an hour ago, somebody was in here with the same problem. I went, wait a minute. That must be an omen that I don't want to buy a new one. She said it wouldn't matter anyway. We're out of them because we had a big sale last 2 or 3 weeks ago, and so we're out of them anyway. So, bottom line is it's gone for the moment until we figure out what we're going to do. But I don't know. I don't think it was anything other than maybe a bad connection somewhere on a loose chip or a loose, solder joint or something.
So, I think we should add here that Chris and I both have them.
And nothing happened. Right.
Yeah.
And we've had no problems with ours.
I've had computers all my life. I mean, nothing's ever
let me just say this. I did bump into, after some we talked about this earlier today, offline via email.
Right.
As we do with most things that we bump into before and after the show. But I did bump into a very similar problem with this, where the device out of nowhere, and I know that I haven't abused it, I haven't dropped it, I haven't done anything to it.
Right, I haven't either.
It's been in a safe spot. It's not overheated. It's not too cold, et cetera, et cetera. It's at room temperature, and it should be functioning. When you push that little power button, it should just boop, come right on, and away it goes. And it doesn't. This happened to me with a couple of different Surface Pro 3s back in the day. And there is a great deal of information on this particular problem on the internet. All you've got to do is search for Surface Pro black screen. All right. And you'll come up with a set of instructions or a couple of different articles on what to do with this and how to get it back. Sometimes it works and everything is fine.
So they're saying it's a software issue, not a hardware issue in this case?
I'm reading both, Chris. I'm reading both.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
But most disheartening for me is Microsoft doesn't put the Surface Pro on a huge sale very often. No. But they, at that moment that I bought this, Microsoft had a $400 across all retail chains sale going on. Plus, this store had another $300 and some off. So I was saving like almost $800 on a $1,900 device. That's a big savings, which I'll probably never ever find again. I mean, I've never
true
before.
It's sad that has happened, but this is a very, very serious and very difficult problem to deal with. And depending on when you purchase this thing, if it happened, it may or may not be covered under warranty repair.
Mercifully, I was only about 3 weeks or so into the machine, and it was a 90-day warranty.
Thankfully for me, this was a Surface Pro 3 that this happened with me with, and I was working for a company. A Microsoft store was right across the street. So I ran across the street at lunch with this thing and said, hey, I've got this problem and now it won't install and it won't come back. And I've got a recovery image right here. And can we please? And they're like, yeah, we'll go through it. And, they ended up giving me a brand new one and I walked out with it. but it happened to that one a couple of months after, and I was able to get it back. But I always kind of looked at it, with the stink eye after that.
Jaundiced eye there, right?
Well, and I had a Surface Pro 3 as well back in the day, and I remember, Chris, you and I talking about it even back then. That was quite a few years back, but I had the yellow banding on the screen, and it was quite a few months into my owning of it, and I took it to a Microsoft store and said, "Hey, what can you do?" And they just literally swapped it on the spot right there. I think the problem was the 4 had just come out. And maybe they asked me if I wanted to pay X more and get the 4 instead or something. There was something like that. But anyway, they were very nice about it. They handled it very well, very quickly, very professionally, which is one of the reasons why I miss the Microsoft stores. They're going to have their own branded products.
I kind of miss them too.
If they have their own branded products, they need to have their own store. And this is the thing. I know they still have a couple of flagship kind of stores hanging out there. Well, they still have a few hanging out there, but it's not a big thing anymore. And I wish they did, because I like the product, but I don't like that everything is second and third hand now.
Right.
I loved it when it was first hand, and I could go there and deal with them directly. It was great.
Yep.
And their service was very good at the time. So, but I haven't had any trouble
we
with
had
the 6 or the 9.
Huge kiosk. I mean, like a store, but it was a kiosk.
Yep. We had a store here for the longest time, of course, before they closed most of the stores. But having said that, I've had a 6. Had no trouble with it. I think, Joel, you said you have a 6 and you didn't have any trouble with it.
Nope.
Chris and I have 9 5Gs, and we haven't had any problems with those.
Right. I've got a 7 Plus. I've got an 8, and I've got a 9 5G. And boy,
it was a one-off thing, except for me and the guy in front of me. But like Chris, you mentioned, it could be a bad batch at the store. It's very possible.
It is very possible. I will tell you that this is both a software and a hardware related issue. I don't know how or why it may have occurred or has recurred in some.
But I still am a believer and a fan of Surface. I really am. It just happened.
And I'm thinking
don't let this scare you off, kids.
And I will say, it's been over a number of years, and the models have been redesigned several times over the years. So my guess would be different problems over the different time frame, that kind of thing. But
and they're made in different places too, 3 different places. So
right. So there's a variety of things that could be going on here. Just like you see with cars, it's the same kind of thing.
Very true.
So I think, I'm hoping the problems are fewer, because certainly we've had very good luck on the whole with these things. So, there you go.
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to go ahead and move us to our next story here. And this is something that I think is interesting based on some of the stuff that's been happening with AI and Microsoft over the last few weeks and months. Apparently, after the soap opera that was the OpenAI and Microsoft crap that was going on, now both the FTC and the UK regulatory on which is their version of the FTC, I think it is called the CAN. All right, I think. All right. Are both looking into the relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI. Chris, you and Joel had found this kind of interesting. So what's going on?
Sorry. Go ahead, Joel. I'm sorry.
I mean, I still think there's lots of drama going on with the OpenAI to begin with as a company, and I think this is probably not a bad idea. I think regulators need to not just look at OpenAI, in my opinion, but I think they also need to just look at AI in general to make sure that we have the proper guardrails to prevent things that have been fictionalized already, happening to the world. So, and I think it's definitely worth those regulators investigating them right now at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Joel. I think this last shakeup with the AI stuff really freaked people out for a brief few days there, and I think this is all going to be spin out from it for a while.
Yep.
And I agree with you as well. I think we've even said that on this show before as well, that we really AI, this conversation about AI needs to have some bumpers, some guardrails, and it hasn't had them. And all we have is the industry leaders telling us, "Oh, we'll be careful. We'll be careful." Really? So far,
Right.
that's not what we're seeing. So I think we all kind of want to, want to hope, but yeah.
That's like stuff I've seen on social media here in the last week. I saw a lot of people were posting this image of what looked like a new Chevrolet version of the Blazer, what it should have looked like in the first place. And if you look closely enough, you can easily identify the image as being generated by AI because it doesn't even have the word Chevrolet on the front grill. It looks like it if you upon a glance, but if you look closer, there it is. And it's like, guys, this is a fake picture, so it's kind of pointless faffing, and they didn't care. But
thanks for playing.
Right.
Yeah.
No, there are concerns from an FTC perspective that the relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI, it may violate some antitrust laws.
But the CMA getting involved, I kind of go, yeah, I kind of
right. CMA, right? And
they're
it's not CAM,
they're ridiculous.
CMA. All right.
Yeah.
So apparently Microsoft did not report the transaction to the agency because the investment that they made in OpenAI doesn't amount to control of the company under U.S. law. All right.
Yeah.
OpenAI is a nonprofit, and acquisitions of non-corporate entities aren't reported under U.S. merger laws, regardless of value. All right. So agency officials are analyzing the situation and assessing what options there are.
Well,
and
let's not forget,
think this is only because if it were anybody else than one of the big tech companies, they would not care. It could be the same amount of money that Microsoft invested, or it could be more than Microsoft invested. If it wasn't Microsoft or Facebook or Apple or Amazon or Google,
or Amazon,
they wouldn't care. All right.
But let's remember the CMA are the same group that took Sony's word over Microsoft and Activision's word about the merger. These are the same goofballs who were completely in the wrong, and yet they wanted to, go ahead and stop it when it started to make no sense for them to do that.
Right.
So you got to take what they're doing with a grain of salt. It's a very limited focus they have, and they're right in the sense that again, as we said, we think there need to be bumpers, and there aren't in some cases, and this is a big deal.
Are technology based. Those bumpers are technology based, and the FTC isn't necessarily worried about that. Okay.
Or the CMA, yeah.
All right. The CMA, I think, may have some concern, and CMA stands for Competition and Markets Authority. They're gathering information from stakeholders to determine whether the collaboration between the two firms threatens competition in the UK, home of Google's AI research lab, DeepMind. All right, the agency is taking comments until January 3rd before making a decision on a formal investigation. So, and Microsoft apparently invested like $13 billion with a B dollars in OpenAI and integrated its products into its core businesses, quickly becoming the undisputed leader of AI among big tech firms, blah, 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 blah. All right. Making certain that Alphabet, Google's parent, had to scramble to catch up. So long story short, that's what most of these folks are looking at. What kind of pressure are they putting on the market? What is what they're doing fair? Does it stifle innovation and competition? Will consumers have a choice, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, and you can imagine that if the next flavor of Windows heavily incorporates this stuff, those investigations are going to get more interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see. what happens with this. I'm more concerned, like everybody else who's watched the Terminator, to make certain that the bumpers are there.
Right.
You know, it's too easy. It's too easy to let it get away.
Well, and I think what people have to keep in mind is, when the technology jumps, it's going to jump fast and suddenly, and it's going to be too late to put those bumpers on at that point.
Right. So, anyway, but that's effectively what's going on with this. And like I said, the CMA, this is something that I'm surprised it took this long for something like this to come up.
Yeah, me too.
All right. But given all the limelight that OpenAI got when Sam Altman was removed, did the hokey pokey, put himself in, his whole self in, and took his whole self out, and et cetera, et cetera. It's no wonder that they're looking at this now. But at the same time, I'm glad that there's going to be some regulatory oversight, because I don't want Judgment Day. Yes.
I don't think any of us does. So
no. But you know what else may be kind of cool in Windows? Widgets, my friends. They may actually end up being useful. All right. Once a change or two.
Why are we releasing Windows 8?
No,
Windows Vista.
Windows Vista. There you go.
So there's a Windows 11 update on its way. All right, or at least it's in the beta channel on the for Windows Insiders, right now. But it has a welcome change that I know a lot of folks have been asking for. All right, you can turn off the news feed. All right. In fact, you can effectively get rid of Microsoft News entirely. All right. You can now uninstall the app, number one, and number two, you can turn that news widget off. All right. I know that on the Yoga 9, the Yoga Book 9i that you and I have, Chris.
Yeah, we do.
That particular widget is fairly invasive. It is in your face,
and it's useless.
Some of the advanced features of that device.
Yeah, it's almost useless to be honest with you.
Well, it's the advanced physical keyboard placement features of that particular device become very difficult to use when that one widget that you can't get rid of keeps cycling and cycling and cycling, effectively bubblegum and fluff at you, and you don't care.
It believes in presenting the chum bucket, that's for sure.
Yes, it truly does. And Microsoft is stated that they've updated the widget settings experience, providing more ways for users to customize their widgets board experience. One of the new settings enables you to just show widgets on your widget board, and another makes it easier for you to discover how to personalize your feed content.
Well, I know I miss, since Windows 8, since Windows Phone and all those devices, I miss that sort of two-way interaction that we used to have with widgets, and they've never really quite come back on any platform quite that way.
No, they have not.
But that code is still in Windows 11 today, really, quite frankly, in some level. It'd be nice to see them resurrect at least part of it, right? So
it will be. I know that there were changes that were made for the Lenovo interface for the Yoga Book that we both have that allowed you to move it out of the way, and that's been a bit. And you can get the news widget out of the way and use a couple of different widgets.
True.
But even still, Microsoft Windows 11, even in and of itself, is still hitting you with notifications for news.
It does.
Regardless of whether or not that widget is actually being used or not. And it's still a huge distraction. And I don't want it on a productivity machine. So thankfully, they've given us a little bit of control, and hopefully
we'll see if this goes far enough. But at least it's a step in the right direction.
It's a
so we'll
step in.
see.
It is a step in the right direction. So hopefully we will see some changes and some improvements. And that, kids, is effectively this show. I want to go ahead now very quickly and move us to our picks of the week segment. But before we get there, I want to go ahead and take a moment to remind our listeners that our show picks are typically hardware, software, and other items of interest that we individually purchase and actually use. All right. And like enough that we want to recommend them to you, our growing listener base. These are not paid advertisements, nor are they anything that we have an affiliated marketing relationship with. If they were, the editorial policy over at iTechGear.org specifically states that we must disclose these things up front. We just sincerely believe in these picks, and we bring them to you at the end of each show. Why?
Because we like you.
Oh, and I love the stereo, guys. Great job.
Yes.
This year, instead of having an entire show dedicated to picks like we did once or twice in the past, I've asked everybody on staff here at iTechGear to and participating in the show to come up with 3 to 5 items that they think are really cool and would make good gifts for the holidays. Now, these things are not necessarily items that are all tech. All right, they may be things that may just be cool to have around. They may be other kinds of things. Larry had some plant covers as an example, right? And a nice, cool little jewelry box that could be used for tech trinkets or other kinds of cables or whatever, dongles, if you will, that I thought was pretty cool. I, however, went the straight tech kind of thing, and these are in no particular order. Some of these are very useful. Some of these are really kind of cool. Some of them are practical. All right. The first one that I've got on my list is the Microsoft Audio Dock. It is on sale, or at least has been on sale at Amazon for a limited time. It is normally about $250. It's been on sale at Amazon for $48.61. It really kind of functions as a small docking station, a small USB docking station. It's got an HDMI port. It's got a USB-C port. It's got well, actually, it's got 2 USB-C ports. It's got 1 USB-A port, and then it functions as a speaker. If you're using Microsoft Teams, it's got a Teams button on the top that'll go ahead and actively start Teams and set you up with the microphone and the speaker that are in the dock, and you will be good to go. It's got a dedicated and attached USB-C cord coming out of it that you plug into your USB-C or Thunderbolt compatible port, and away you go. And for $48.61, this is a wonderful idea if all you're looking for is connections for 1 or 2 monitors, and maybe some spot for some kind of a USB hub or USB-C hub, or some other couple accessories. $48.61. I thought it was pretty cool. Was kind of, it's kind of, I didn't splurge. I didn't indulge. But man, it took a little bit. I don't need it, but it's 75 or so % off. So why not? All right.
There you go.
So this next one that I've got is something that I've been a guitar player most of my life. I started playing probably back in 81 or 82. That would be 1981 or 1982. And I've been on and off with it ever since. My arthritis has been so bad that it's made guitar playing nearly impossible for me. A lot of the pressure that you need to put on a guitar neck to actually hold the strings down can be very painful, and especially your joints, your ligaments are all affected by the inflammation that arthritis sufferers have. It's near impossible to play, regardless of how expensive or how fast or quick the action is on on any particular guitar. So what I've got here is the Aeroband electric guitar. Now, this is a MIDI compatible instrument. There are strings that are located in between what appear to be pickups on the body of this guitar. And that's the only place where there are quote unquote strings, and they are real metal guitar strings. All right. So this is not a toy. This is an actual MIDI compatible professional instrument that will allow you to play guitar. There's a fretboard, and there are nylon, quote unquote, nylon strings that are built into the fretboard. They aren't strung on top like a regular guitar. They're actually built part of the fretboard, and all you need to do is cover them. So there's no hard pressure. There's no pressing that you have to do. All right. This came out on Kickstarter a while back in either late or mid to early to mid 22, and I have been waiting since to get this thing. It is normally anywhere between $459 to $599 directly from Aeroband. They did have a 40 to 50% off sale if you got in early enough on Kickstarter. So this really cost me somewhere in the neighborhood of around $300 when I bought it. And I've been waiting for it for about 12 to 18 months. It was actually supposed to be released in October of 2022, and it didn't come out, and I'm still waiting for this. Aeroband has done a really great job of communicating with backers. A lot of their backers have received their rewards. I've had 2 meetings video meetings with the company. I know that the product does exist. I'm still waiting on mine. It did not arrive the week of 11/27 when I got a tracking number on it. It's still pending. But it is really a cool way of playing guitar. The only thing that you really can't do with this is bend a string, because the strings are built into the neck. So if they can figure out some way of doing that and making that happen, it would be a really great thing, but we'll have to wait and see. But this is a really cool thing. The neck and the guitar body come completely apart, so it's very easy to store and take on the go. It's got full regular amp connections. It's got a MIDI connection via a USB-C port as well. It's got a number of different voices that are internal. This thing, it looks really sweet, and you can check out links to it directly on the Aeroband site, or you can even see it on Amazon.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it is. It really looks like a cool little thing, and I'm hoping to get back into playing some guitar soon, because it's been a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have to air guitar anymore. I can do it now all on my own.
And we know how frightening that is. So
It is very true. It's very, very true. Yeah. And speaking of wearables and health related objects, if you are somebody that wants to be able to measure some health metrics, body temperature, activity, heart rate, oxygen levels in your blood, You want to be able to go ahead and measure activity levels, exercises, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, you've got your smartwatch. Yes, you've got your phone that will actually go ahead and do some of this, or a Fitbit or something else. I want to point everybody towards Aura Ring. If you haven't seen this thing, then you need to go ahead and take a look at this. This is pretty cool. They're really big on um, sleep analysis and sleep apnea analysis, and whether or not you're getting enough oxygen while you sleep, or how restful your sleep was, how ready you are to attack the day, etc. I did an unboxing of the Aura Ring a while back, and this is a really cool, for $269 to $319. It may seem like it's a bit expensive, but it is probably the easiest thing I've ever worn to help me keep an eye on and a handle on my health. You charge it once every 3 to 4 days, depending on how active you are. You run the app once a day to send the sleep data over, and you're good to go. It is an amazing device, and like I said, it's very easy to wear. And you don't really have to worry about whether or not it's going to get wet. It assumes it's going to get wet. You don't have to worry about whether or not it's got a display to break, because it doesn't have a display. It's just got the motion sensors, the temperature sensors, the oxygen sensors, the heart rate sensors. They're all baked into the ring. All right.
There you go.
And there you go. If you're interested, there are links out there to help you pick which one you want in a number of different finishes. And again, the unboxing is out there. So take a look at that. Last two, and I'm going to make these quick. This next one, man, everybody has got a need for a cable. And right now with iPhone 15 series moving to USB, and your Android, or USB-C, and your Android phones running on USB-C, everybody needs a cable. Cable. Who's got the cable? Anchor has the cable. For 6 feet, $8.54. 3 feet, $9.99, which doesn't make sense to me. And for 10 foot, $14.99. I've got links out there for everybody to go ahead and click to get your Anchor cables. Everybody's going to need a cable. You got to have a charger for the brand new devices that you guys are going to go ahead and get for Christmas. Anchor makes a great cable, and this is a really, really good one. The last thing that I want to go ahead and go over here is the Framework Laptop 16. Now, what is the Framework Laptop? This is probably one of the best pieces of Windows or Linux hardware that you can probably buy out there. It's probably the coolest thing that I've seen in my entire life. You can spec and build your laptop with user replaceable and user repairable parts that you can get directly from Framework. All right. They start a do-it-yourself laptop starts at $13.99. Their pre-built laptops start at $16.99. You can upgrade nearly every component in the entire laptop, not just the RAM or the SSD. You can upgrade your processor and your motherboard. All right. You can update your graphics adapter if it's not built in, if it's not running a system on the chip, or in any other kind of integrated graphics. You can upgrade the display, the keyboard, etc., and just by swapping modules and parts. All right. And if you're wanting to go ahead and have something that looks kind of cool, is a little bit different, this is the one for you. If you're wanting something that you know you're going to be able to stay with and have grow with you, take a look at this. The prices are reasonable. And you don't have to buy all of the components from them. You can get your RAM anywhere you want for any price that you can find it. You can get your own SSD anywhere you want for anywhere that you can find it. It's got a NVMe M.2, was it 2280 as well as a 2230 slot. So there's more than one slot on the controller, and you can have more than one drive in the machine. They've got USB-C based modules that you can slide in and out of the side of the machine for different functionality. One for, say, an HDMI port. You're done with the monitor. You want to go away. You want to stick in perhaps that M.30, an additional M2.2232 drive. Pull the HDMI port out and slide that USB-C compatible based solid state drive right in. In and out and in and out and in and out. And they've got a number of different modules that do a number of different things. You can get your RAM wherever RAM is sold. You can get your drives wherever drives are sold, etc. Do it yourself, bring your own, roll your own. Framework Laptop 16. Take a look and give it a shot. I think it's kind of cool. All right. And that is my 2023 Black Friday picks for this year. And that, kids, is the show. This has been the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 71. Well, doesn't that just suck? Recorded live Sunday, December 10th, 2023, live from iTechGear Central. This is Christopher Spera, and for Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, Mr. Chris Gavula, and Brother Joe McLaughlin, I want to say we will see you next time for our last show of the year.